Welcome to LA County Real Estate Investors Association podcast. We do this every week on Tuesday at 3 p.m., where we look to educate you, to create some networking opportunities, and also provide some mentorship from people who've been successful to help us along the path. One of the people who clearly is both a source of networking because of the people he knows and a mentor based on his success is Steve Matley. He has an organization, coast-to-coast.com. He's been on here before. Steve, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thank you, Bill. It's wonderful to be back.
So give me kind of a high-level overview. What is Coast to Coast? What is it the organization does, and how do you enter the marketplace?
Coast to Coast Equities is a C corporation in Florida, actually. It's myself and two partners. I've known these gentlemen since the early 90s. They've known each other since probably the late 70s. They're actually older than I am. And I knew them for at least 10 years before we went into business together. We acquire raw land in multiple states across the country. We do what's known as entitlement. Entitlement is sort of a all-encompassing name for the codes, rules, and regulations around land use. And we change it to a higher and better use, and then we generally sell it to developers and builders.
Is the term land bank, is that similar or is that different?
The land bank tends to be holding on to it and waiting for it to appreciate in value. So, for example, I sell to land bankers sometimes, especially, say, commercial retail property that is a remnant of a residential site. They're not going to build that strip mall until there's 2,500 new homes built somewhere in the future, which may take 15 years. Okay. So we'll sell that to a land bank, and they'll sit on it. They got it at a good price, and it'll appreciate. They'll sell it later. We sell more to developers that will build homes, apartments. I have an RV park going on. I've got all kinds of different things. You know, land is an empty canvas. You do whatever you want with it.
Who do you typically buy your property from?
Everything we buy is unlisted. We do heavy research and kind of farm it. Our general process is to go into an area, drive around, research it, see what's available in the listings, but we know the listings won't work for us. Listings means somebody wants the cash right away. We need a whole different structure on that. So what we do is then we've profiled the properties, and we start going on to Google Earth, go to a title company website, databases, find the owners, kind of what wholesalers do. But we don't have, there's no doors to knock on. That's the problem, right? There's no phone to call. So we have to go, we do skip tracing software and stuff to find owners. And we contact them and say, look, we're just interested in a cash offer on your property if you have any interest whatsoever. And that's how we approach it.
What is it that drives your initial research? I mean, there's land all across America. You're not chasing all of them. So what is it that causes you to pick a particular area to look at?
We do it. I kind of refer to it as segmenting the market. And so I start with the macro, which is where are the states I want to work in? And generally they tend to be our best market researchers. Where do Californians move to? Because that's always a high growth area. There's a lot of Californians, right?
And a lot of us are moving.
Yeah. Well, only about 1% was the total loss of population in California, but that's 1% of a huge number. Right. And so if you have 1% of 35 million people moving out into an area and they're split among, half a dozen general areas they move to, that's a big influx for smaller areas. Right. So it tends to be Florida, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, those kind of places. Really, we love Florida, but it's so hard to get in there. It's so competitive. Texas and Arizona tend to be more where we go. Arizona's really been our gold mine. We always thought Texas would be. So that's how we figured it out. And then we go to micro markets. Is the agency that has jurisdiction, are they pro-development, or are they kind of like, we're here, shut the gate? And that's true. Even in the most development-friendly states, there are cities and municipalities and counties that say, we kind of like it. We don't want the Californians moving in, please. Thank you very much.
Right. And I think that different counties have different inputs, different desires for their communities. Some are wide open, can't build enough, and others are not. So within the states, is there a particular submarket today that you're looking for more deals or more properties in Arizona or Texas? Or
yes. And honestly, a lot of times what we target isn't where we end up. So like in Florida, we targeted the 10 corridor from Tallahassee to Jacksonville. That seemed like the highest growth area we could find. It looked like it was a real, we never did a project there. All the projects ended up being in Central Florida, down in like Marion County. Around kind of between Orlando and Gainesville. Wow. And that's because the opportunities just kept popping up around there. And so then you say, well, this works. And Ocala, Marion County, Ocala area changed very much in the last 15 years. They went from a bedroom community where everybody commuted out to other places to now 65% of their workforce drives in. So they have a housing shortage now.
Wow. So you were, for the longest part of your career, in California almost exclusively, no?
Yes. Yeah. So California was
San
very
Diego
good to
area?
us for decades, and we really, well, mostly Riverside County. So I always lived coastal counties, but most of our projects were in the more development and friendly areas of Riverside, San Bernardino County, primarily Southwest Riverside County. The coastal counties have been extremely arduous to do entitlements for many, many decades now, and the closer you get to the water, the tougher it gets. River, even now, the inland is getting very difficult to work in. It just takes a long time. So the caveat there is it's still very lucrative. I don't discourage people from doing projects in California. Real estate in California is still very lucrative. It's just a lot more time, stress, and unpredictability. And we actually are selling our last California project currently right now in Riverside County, and we're really focusing exclusively out of state because I can do things so much faster. What I can do in 10 to 12 months out of state would take me 3 to 5 years in California.
I heard Elon Musk, when he opened the Giga plant in Austin, which I think he went from groundbreak to open in a year.
Yes.
He said if he was looking to build that same Giga plant in California, he would still be maybe halfway through the entitlement process and nowhere near building the building.
Yeah, and that's the entitlement process, and that's not the plan check process for the actual buildings. Yeah, he's a long time to go, and he built what 2 million square feet out there or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, so let's step back for a second and take a look at you as a businessman. You lived in the coastal counties, but you'd worked in primarily Riverside County. For those who don't know the area, within a couple hours drive of where you lived, for a long time. And at some point, you must have said, "Wow, this isn't working. We need to look out of here." That must have taken a significant change in attitude, in risk tolerance, in procedures. Talk about what was it that forced that change, and how did you kind of grow into that?
Well, so myself, I have 2 partners in my business. We're all Californians. I was born and raised here. My partner, who lives in Florida now, he was born and raised here. There's another partner that was born and raised here who lives in Temecula area. I live in San Diego, and so to move out of California takes a lot of pushing and prodding. It was resistant. I still live here. I tell people, because people ask me, you have a business, why do you still stay in California with as difficult as it is? And I say, because I live in San Diego. If you live in Barstow, it's a whole different ball game, right? That's not a big deal to leave California. But if you live in, and not to diss Barstow, but if you live in San Diego, which is arguably one of the most beautiful places on the planet with the mild weather and everything, it's like LA without the crowded freeways and before the smog came in, right? It's just beautiful with oceans and stuff, and to leave there is very difficult. And I always joke with people that my relationship with California is like being in a relationship with a high maintenance, spoiled, rotten, completely abusive woman who is so beautiful you cannot get yourself to leave. You should, but every day you tell yourself, maybe one more day, and you stay here. Because I look out my window and I'm staring at the bay. I've got Balboa Parks in my backyard. I go, and it's hard to leave, but I'll do my businesses out of California. So really, it came down to things were already changing, but it really came down to when the pandemic came, it really took a hard shift to be even really more difficult. And a lot of that is, one, everything shut down, and you couldn't, you used to be able to go into cities and pound on the desk and say, I need to talk to somebody, and then they wouldn't let you in. And a lot of cities still don't let you in. They just never open that back up again. So they kind of, hide behind emails and phones and stuff. And then the other thing is, all the people we knew in the business, we had connections in the cities we worked in that had been there for many decades. We'd been very successful working projects. They all retired out during the pandemic, and I don't blame them. They got sent home and they had nothing to do. So why not take the retirement? And so a whole new crop of people come in, and they're not the old gray hairs like you and me have been around a long time. And it makes sense. The city would hire younger people that they can pay less money to and then train up and make career people out of them, right? But they're green. And so they don't understand the California Map Act, CEQA, any of those things. And it's really hard. They don't really want you telling them what to do. And I get that too. So because the developer shouldn't be telling the city what to do. So that kind of creates a very much longer time frame. And so our projects went from taking about 18 to 24 months in California just to get the entitlements to honestly 3 to 5 years. It just, and that's so unpredictable. And now what do you do with your investors? So we owe number one rule in this business is preserve the investor capital and get it back to them. And you can't do that if you're stuck in a speculative land deal and you can't get your approvals and they keep changing the rules on you. So that's kind of what prompted that. So we started going out of California, and we've done several cycles of projects in other states while we're still waiting for like the last project in California to get finished.
One of the things I notice is I meet people, and I'm one of them, I didn't really notice about myself, is that over the past period of time, even before COVID, people in California and New York, I think they share this, are more likely to do business in multiple states, not limited by geography, right? If you're in New York, maybe New Jersey is one thing, or Pennsylvania. But you notice when you meet New Yorkers, attorneys, accountants, investor people, they tend to have more national platform. And I think California, that's developed more. Personally, I sell property in California, I'm licensed in California, but I started building a national team 5 years ago. I have 47 agents around the country because I saw that California's economy was limited, and I had to make some changes to my work structure to allow me to leverage my time across a bigger market. The obvious advantage is bigger opportunities nationally. The challenge is I don't have the same maybe local expertise personally. I have to work with the people to do that. So at some point you moved your whole process from where you could drive a couple hours to where I understand you can hop a plane, but sometimes you can't. And a plane requires a little logistics. You got to buy the ticket, go to the airport. Physically, you got to fly somewhere, stay somewhere maybe. So you must have at some point really changed your operation to accommodate this change in strategy. Talk about that your mindset was, I'm willing to write a check and put money in Florida rather than an hour's drive away.
Yeah, so it's not as dramatic because we don't have a storefront office anywhere. I work out of my house. My two partners work out of their houses. We have a business director who works out of her house. So we're pretty remote anyways. And so you're right as far as having to fly to properties. So instead of driving an hour to 2 hours to properties in the Inland Empire from where I live, now I live 10 minutes from San Diego Airport. I'm on the hill right above it. So it's an 8 minute to 10 minute Uber ride down there. You walk through TSA pre, I'm on a plane and I can be in Phoenix in they don't even level off to serve you drinks, right? You're in there less than an hour, and you grab a rental car and drive. Phoenix is a
suburb of San Diego, actually.
Kind of. And Vegas is almost the same way, right? Just boom, you're there, right? Yeah. Now, if I'm going to Florida or Texas, that's a different deal. And like Florida, I can it's hard to get nonstops out of San Diego. Texas, I can. But so there is that issue. But normally the way we do this is I don't have to go to the site very often. So like I've got 7 active projects in Arizona. I've been working in that market for the past 4 years. I physically have been out there to visit and do things, I think about 5 to 6 times in that time period. But like you said, you build a team. So I'm not a native Arizonan. I'm not a native of Maricopa or Pinal County or Navajo County, any of the places we're working in, but I have a team that is. So I have a fantastic team out there. They're based out of Scottsdale, led by an urban planning and landscape design group, and they have a civil engineer that works with them very well. We have 2 civil engineers we work with out there. And so in our business model is we're orchestra leaders. We don't write or compose the music, and we don't play any of the instruments. Our job is to just get everybody to play together, and we trust those experts to know what they're doing. And we just have to get them to play together, and it's a beautiful thing if we do. And if we do it wrong, it's a horrible thing. But our job is to get them all to work together, and we rely on them. I don't even have. So I actually processed a map that went through in Navajo County, Arizona, which is when you land in Phoenix, you got a 2.5 hour drive up the hill to get there. It's in the resorts. It's a 55 plus RV resort up there. So we have a hired consultant who is a liaison. He's a former chief of staff of the county up there. So he knows everybody. He's a local. And so he kind of runs herd for us. So through the planning commission, board of supervisors, the following planning commission for the detailed plans, we never had to go there. He takes care of all of it and just sends us, we can zoom in and watch things, but we don't say anything. And so when we have consultants that we can trust like that, it works really well. I could literally live anywhere in the United States and do the projects anywhere else in the United States. And I would probably be on an airplane I'm not on an airplane more. So I'll do it like all the travel at once. I'll do like 3 trips in September, and then I don't go anywhere till like January. I'll do 3 trips in January, that kind of stuff. That's kind of how it works for us. And then the business model works. And I will say this to the listeners out there. You should not be a real estate investor, a real estate agent, a title person, whatever you are. You should be in the business. You should be a business person. You're a real estate business. You're a real estate investing business, right? That's what you're doing. And as that, you structure your business up front. And my partners and I did the hard work when we started of sitting down and saying, what's this animal going to look like this round? Because we had done a previous iteration of this before. And we had some tenets. One of those was we will be lean, mean, and remote as much as possible. Number 2 was no employees. Well, we're the employees. That's it. We're employees of our own company. And we made that decision. But part of it because we were still in California, right? And so there's all those issues. And we made certain rules and we set the business structure up that way. And that's the way it's working. And it enabled us to go out of state and work really easily together.
And so I think what you're describing, I have this coaching call with my team all the time, which is you're a business, you're not an employee, because people go into real estate and they think of themselves as a commissioned employee getting, all commission, and you can make good commission. Well, that's great. But if you spend all that money on your business and you spend it all because you're done, you're not building anything versus building a business. And I think the thing that you and I have in common, the younger group, I think maybe is stronger at leveraging technology, though I'm pretty good at it. I know you have a team behind you that helps you with technology, and that's great. That the technology isn't my competitive advantage. Mine is my ability to network with people and team build, like you mentioned. And I think that younger people don't focus on that as much, but that's the more blue ocean opportunity. If you can combine technology, and you're doing that with, I'm sure, maps and online verifications and communication, but combine that with leveraging with people, that's where the real juice, I think, hits the road. And I think from a business point of view, we don't want to overlook that. Like you, I have no employees. That's my number one rule. But I have 7 virtual assistants. I have 47 team members that are agents building their business. And by working together, we can be more productive. By talking to you, hopefully I can be more productive. So let's talk about what opportunities you see for somebody who's looking to get into real estate. Maybe they're it's a side gig for them now, or they want to get out of their job into real estate investing. Where do you see do you have a path that you offer, either people invest with you or learn with you, or what opportunities would somebody have to go in the business that you're able to point them to?
Well, first, this is going to sound like a shameless plug, but go find your local real estate investor association. That is step number 1. You know, if you want to catch a cold, you hang out with people that got a cold. If you want to catch real estate investing, go hang out with people that do real estate investing, right? That's the way it is. Yeah. So you're with LA County RIA, Lloyd's group, and that's a great group. He has a good expo going on every month. Great educators. Yep. I'm on the board of SDCIA in San Diego, the San Diego Creative Investors. I'm a part of a lot of different real estate investor groups. As RIA in Arizona, that has multiple chapters. That's the place to start. You will start seeing people, and I know so many success stories of the person that I remember walking into one of those clubs, just kicking the tires, looking around, completely lost, didn't know terminology. What's wholesale mean? What's an ADU? They don't know any of these things, right? And then fast forward, one of the gentlemen I met there 4 years later, he and his wife had both quit their high-paying jobs because they had an ADU business across the country, but I don't know, dozens of units, because that's what he bought into. And actually what happened was he went to a meeting and the speaker there was talking about investing in ADUs. They met, hit it off, and they became partners. Wow. And they both have the skills each other needed to just skyrocket. So there's a lot of stories like that. So start with your local RIA and start meeting people. Secondly, we live in an era, you mentioned technology. We have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to self-education. Now, you and I are dinosaurs, and remember having to go to the library with a card catalog and a periodical list of journals and that kind of stuff, right?
Do we decimal research?
Yeah, and we wanted to get data. We had to go to a university that had a federal depository to get the Bureau of Labor Statistics and U.S. Census Bureau stuff. Yep. Now, Google will get you everything you want. Google and Bing and all that kind of stuff. You get everything. Now you got to sort through it to find out what's legit and what's not. So it's almost too much information sometimes, but it's all there at your fingertips. And so when you mentioned finding property, my partner in Florida, he's an older guy, not all that tech savvy, but one thing he can do on the computer, he will find properties from his seat in his office. because he'll Google Earth things. Then he goes into the county's or the city's zoning plans, finds out what it's zoned for, what the general plan designation is, goes into the title software, finds out who's getting the tax bill so he can find the owner, all this stuff from his computer. And you give that guy 3 hours and he'll come up with 4 properties that fit the bill in the location you want to find it. And we'll start contacting those owners. So we have all that available. So get familiar with the applications available. And you mentioned this is about education and mentorship. That's the key. And you can't do that unless you go meet people. So there are educational sessions that are available through REIAs and other people. I will caution people, you don't need to go spend thousands of dollars on the proprietary systems and that kind of stuff. If you find one that works for you and it's in the niche that you've already decided you will do, that may be very good money spent. In the beginning, you don't need to do that. In the beginning, you need to go find, what's out there, what's available, and go to the inexpensive trainings that some of these REIs offer. It's maybe $100 to attend something or something like that. It's cheap and it's good education. So that's where I recommend people starting with.
Hold on, since you put a shameless plug in, let's go ahead and let's real quick cut to our sponsors and make sure we make sure people can follow up on that, right? So this is the official podcast for the LA County Real Estate Investors Association, and the website's lereic.com. But we have a free monthly gathering, 250 people in West Los Angeles. Usually have a speaker. Steve is a past speaker, I think, both at the monthly and then I think at the annual expo as well. You've spoken at that before. This is free to come to. Free parking if you get there early enough. 250 people plus 50 vendors. It's the second Thursday of the month. Now we're taping this today on March 14th. Happens to be tonight. But every month on the second Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m., we have this program. Speakers include Jerry Rubens on March 14th tonight on flipping properties. On April 11th, it's going to be William Bronchick. I haven't met him yet. Looking forward to. And he's on buying properties without banks, really using other people's money. And then the Vendors Expo is right before that. And that's free. So just come down to lereic.com and hit free. Just real quick, our guest today, really excited to have Steve Matley again. Coast to Coast Equities, coast-to-coast.com is the website. And go on there and you can see their current projects, what they're working on, meet the team and such. But again, the best place, as he said, to meet people are real estate investment groups. And one of the best, certainly Los Angeles, is the LA County Real Estate Investors Association. That's lereic.com. Thanks for the shameless plug there.
You have a sister organization up north of you, right? In Ventura?
Correct. The Ventura Properties is on the second Wednesday of the month. And that's Ventura. That's VC real estate. I forget that one. That's terrible. Yes, on the LARC has the details, but in Ventura County, it has it on the second Wednesday of the month as well. Thank you. Because when you came out and spoke, you hit both of them, I think.
I did. So I grew up in Ventura, so I'm familiar. I know the area. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so we did that, and then so the best place to learn is real estate investment clubs, and you certainly can learn in LA about investing in other states. Steve has come to our presentation, as other investors have around the country. That's a great opportunity.
And I think LA CREI does kind of like the action groups or breakout groups as well, I think, don't they?
He has a boot camp. He has different programs that come from time to time.
Most of the clubs have additional education beyond the monthly meeting, and so check them out and find out. Am I interested in this area? I'm actually teaching a syndication workshop one Saturday a month for SDCIA. They don't pay me for it, but it's an SDCIA event. But again, I'm investing in people in the club because I know eventually that they might invest with me, right? That's kind of how it works. That's one hand washes the other approach. Nice. And I really go with kind of the Ziegler approach. If you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want, right? That's kind of how this game works. Right. So those kind of things, take advantage of that stuff. They're inexpensive and you'll get great information from experts.
In fact, I just found it, the Ventura County Real Estate Investors Association, and that website is let me see if I pull up real fast, vcrealestateinvestors.com. That's Ventura County, which may compete with San Diego for the prettiest part of California. I don't know. Personally, I think San Diego's better, a little bit warmer, and La Jolla, I think, is my favorite piece of the piece in San Diego County, but Ventura is pretty darn close second to nice places to go.
And growing up there, I never really appreciated it because as a kid, it's a small town with not a lot to do. You got to drive to LA to get to see any concerts or shows or do anything fun, right? So we didn't appreciate it. Now I'm thinking, man, that was a great place to grow up. That was awesome.
Yeah, I grew up in Orange County, California, so likewise, some nice places you don't appreciate. Of all the places in the world with billions of people, you'll happen to live in like paradise almost compared to where the people have. So let's talk about real estate. I know that a lot of people who get involved, initially, and they haven't yet wrote their first check investing in money, or they're not jumped into the actual business side of it, can see a lot of negative press, a lot of negative news articles. I've been in this business since 1986. I'm not going anywhere. So it doesn't matter what the news says. That just kind of gets the competitors out and leaves more business for me. So I don't really care. What do you tell people who see, news, gee, we're headed to recession, there's gonna be depression, everything's gonna collapse, housing prices are gonna go down. What do you advise people to keep themselves out of that, the mental gyrations and emotional gyrations of that?
I tell people that in the last 10 years, all those experts have correctly predicted at least 20 of the last 2 downturns. So, that's kind of how that happens, right? And the downturns are small and minor, right? And so what I learned is all these gurus that I called the last recession. Yeah, but you called it every year for 15 years and one day it happened. If I went out every day and told people it was going to rain, eventually I'd be right. And I'd say, I'm the guy that predicted the rain, right? So, and that's what I see with a lot of these speakers. And some make the circuits of some of these clubs too. So you got to be careful of them. But there's places to point people there's people that do a lot of research on this. So one out of our club, a guy named Patrick Capel, who does a San Diego area real estate, and he's one of the best. He doesn't just cull a bunch of stuff off of all the websites and then parrot it. He does his own research and he's saying, okay, here's what they haven't told you. There's this many billions of dollars being pumped into this hospital, this many billions of dollars going into this college, this many billions of dollars going into this redevelopment area. That's job. And so he calls San Diego San Francisco circa 1990. Because it's booming right now, okay? And then there's people, this guy I know named Bill Gross, and what he does is he puts out this newsletter, and he's very good at finding, right? This is you find these erroneous or misleading headlines and call them out on the facts. And I point people to those things. I've used your newsletter sometimes to say, hey, why don't you read this and get the real facts? Because I have people tell me, I heard this on CNBC. Oh, great. That came from Zillow, who pays for the advertising on there.
Exactly.
They have a vested interest in pushing things a certain direction. And do you think the news anchor that reported that was telling you what is actual or what they were told to say because they're paid to do what the sponsor tells them to? And I try to tell them every news outlet out there is owned by one of 5 entertainment companies, not news organizations, entertainment companies. Right. Their job is to get you to tune in so they can sell airtime. They sell airtime to advertisers, and that's what they're beholden to. And if you understand that, then you understand why it's not, I don't see this big vast conspiracy and all this stuff. What I see is the money drives the train. Right. And the sponsors have vested interest in telling the news media, this is what you'll say, otherwise I'm pulling my sponsorship, right? So again, it's not, I look at it very simple. I'm a follow the money kind of person. So I tell people, look, there has been a lot of predictions out there that have never come true about not just real estate, but a lot of things. So why don't you look and ask yourself, if all that's true, why did housing prices go up in December, which is supposed to be during a downturn, and December is notoriously a month where prices drop. Right. And yet the prices went up. What does that tell you?
What does it tell you?
So it's one of those, stop listening to the noise and use your own noodle. Do some critical thinking. And think through it and say, does this even make sense?
I'm in real estate. And so when realtors talk about the market, I would say to them, let me ask you, in your MLS, in a good month, how many sides are there? Now, to a real estate agent, a side is you have either buyer side or seller side. So in my MLS, in the record month of all time, they had like 12,000 sides. The worst month that goes back about 10 years or so is 2008 or 9. There are only 7,000 sides. I only need 2 a month to have a fabulous lifestyle. So whether it's 2 out of 12,000, 7,000, it doesn't really matter. I just need 2. And here's the thing. If I do my job every day, which is communicate with prospects, communicate with customers, do a good job, earn the recommendation and support from my clients, I'll do my 2 deals every month or more. That's just how it works.
So I teach in a college as well, and I tell my students all the time, I say, look, you don't need to be superstar. You need to show up and act like you're interested. And if you do that, you're in the top 10% of the workforce right there. And you will move up quickly and get promotions. And you'll be shocked at how fast you grow monetarily and with responsibility, because most people won't do it. So just, and how many agents are there in Southern California, real estate agents? I mean, they're just, you can't throw a rock without hitting one, right?
Yeah.
And yet how many of them are actually making a living at real estate?
How many people can even read a paragraph? There's one paragraph in the residential purchase agreement, the standard form, that talks about the buyer's deposit, how they get it back, or at risk. We call it the contingencies. Most of you know how that works. It's like, that's the one form you're going to use. The one paragraph your customer cares about is, if I wire the money, what happens when we get it back? And I've had brokers not be able to understand. It's written in plain English. It's not a foreign language. It's not like calculus. It's just a sentence you could read. Most people don't even show up at the basics. In fact,
do your homework. Do your basic homework. Know your job. Know what you're telling people. Yeah. And so every contract we have, I read every word of the contract. I'm responding to an RFP out of a city in Arizona right now to do a master development plan. I read every word of that. I have all my team members read every word of it, and we all put notes and highlight stuff, and we all share that information so we know every word of it. You have to, because otherwise you're not going to know what you're signing. And number two, you cannot serve your clients. I have to tell my investors ask me questions. I need to know what I'm doing and how I'm responsible for other people's money, which is a sobering responsibility.
Yes.
Much more important than handling your own stuff. You better know what you're doing. And if you don't, you need to find a different game to get in. And it's not that difficult. It's not like it takes me 100 hours a week to do this stuff. It's not like getting a doctorate degree or something. You just read the paper in front of you. And if you don't understand it, ask a question. You know how we have Google. We can Google phrases and say, what does this mean legally?
Well, I think that's why one thing I noticed about you, and I think it's true about me and everybody I've ever seen who's successful, is they have a very, very narrow area of expertise that they've mastered. Like for me, even though I'm a broker and I can and have listed and sold residential, commercial property, industrial property, I only want to use the California Association of Realtor forms because I know those forms. What I don't want to do is use the AIR forms, because that's a whole nother set I have to learn. What I don't want to do is entertain offers on custom forms because an attorney wrote a 50-page contract, because as you said, then I have to read 50 pages and understand every single word. Well, how could I do that in comparison to the forms that I do use? In your case, and in my world, I only market to probate and trust real estate because I know that area really well. I know the forms, I know the disclosures. In your case, it's unentitled land that you're getting entitlements to in certain markets. The thing I've learned about new people is they want to do everything. They go to a network event and they do, first-time home buyers, luxury homes, investment properties, bridges, plane hangars, everything. And I say, I just do probate real estate. That's all I do. But everybody in the room hears that and knows what I do. And same with you, developing property in particular in the market you're in, I think gives you a big advantage rather than a disadvantage.
Yeah. So do you know Bill Tan? He runs another group. Okay. Bill Tan has a saying, the riches are in the niches.
Yes.
Find your niche and stick to it. And then not only do they not want to do these people want to do everything in real estate, they want to do every part of it. They want, instead of building a team.
Yes.
And that's ridiculous. And when I did a lot of business consulting in the past, and I would ask people, a lot of them were realtors because they're independent people. They don't know their business. And I'd create an organization chart of all the duties and stuff they have to do.
Right.
And I put their name in every box, like any company would have. I said, this is why you're so tired. You don't have a job. Right. You have 25 jobs and they all have to get done. So which one of these do you want to get rid of first? Go find someone else to do this. Generally, it's the accounting and finance part they don't like, right?
For sure.
So, yeah.
For sure.
Go hire a bookkeeper. You can hire a bookkeeper who has a 2-year associate's degree from the local community college and is just, badass at Excel. And they will take care of that for you, and then have a CPA do your taxes once a year. Yes. And everything's in order. Just do that simple thing. Yes. We have, as you mentioned, VAs. VAs are out there to do your social media posting. They can do scheduling for you, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And the help is out there, but people want to be in control. They want to say, I'm my own boss. I'm in control. I call all the shots. Well, yeah, but you can't do everything yourself, and you don't have the skill set to do everything. Accountants and salespeople and IT people all have very different mindsets and personalities and skill sets. You can't be all that.
Right. I often find new people make a mistake of trying to take on multiple jobs, right? I want to own my own brokerage. That's a great goal, but you got to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I started as a mortgage loan originator at a big company with the idea of owning my own company 5 years down the road. Why not work for somebody else and learn on their nickel?
Make all your mistakes on their dime. That's a fact.
Exactly. And I see it's literally today I was on a networking event with real estate agents where the promoter was promoting you can do mortgages and real estate on the same transactions. I'm like, I can barely do real estate. How do you, and I'm a smart guy and I work hard. How do you do both? And in my experience, I've never met anybody who made $100,000 a year in commissions doing both. I've met plenty who do 2, 3, 4, 500,000 or more doing just one of those two.
And I think there might be some exposure there too, because you're handling two different things where the realtor is supposed to be advocating for you, even with the lender, to some degree. And so when you put it all under one umbrella, I think maybe you've opened yourself up to a little bit of exposure.
Well, no, because people don't have any net worth because they don't make any money. So there's no exposure. I'm worried about exposure. You're worried about exposure because we have some money in the bank. The people starting out who are smarter than me know they can do both. And it's like, how do you do both? I don't see.
Yeah. And
every day I'm struggling to keep up with one.
Yeah. And it's not just learning on someone else's dime. The other thing is you don't have a network of people yet. And so when you work for someone else, you build that we used to call it the Rolodex, right? Correct. You build that list of people that are your contacts and all these different title people, escrow people, attorneys, and all these different people you need to work with all over the home inspectors, whoever they are, contractors. And so you build that up and you have a less risk position. Business owners, they're the last person paid. But when you work for someone else, you get your pay, your commission, your check, whatever you get. You start saving that up diligently. And so now 5 years later, you have experience, knowledge, you've made your mistakes on someone else's time, you have a contact base, and you have money saved up to start your business because you may not make a profit for the first few years. Right. And now you're ready to go. And so a plan with patience is the right way to go. When you said the 5-year deal, that's exactly what I recommend to people. At least 5 years work for someone else.
What was interesting to me was in year 4 or so, the company I was managing for came to me and said, "Hey, we're shutting down, but you can take over this operation if you pay off the leases." It was about a year of continued operation, and then the leases were all paid off. The commercial leases would be renegotiated, and the equipment leases would be paid off in full. So really, at the end of year 5, I had to find my own commercial space, which worked out. I had all the equipment was paid for. And I had the work in process on my own. And so I went from being a manager of a company to own my own business. And that was where I did it. The opportunity kind of came to me when I was ready for it rather than forcing the issue when I really wasn't ready for it.
Yeah. And you can buy an existing organization. There's people who buy the whole business enterprise or whatever you want to do. However, you have to have the knowledge, experience, and capacity to be able to run the thing.
Right.
And that's where you learn that over time. As you mentioned, all this is about time and experience.
Right. Yeah. Well, look, obviously we're older and we value our experience. And I try to explain to young people the value of it, not to sell myself, but to say you need to accumulate your own experience, accumulate your own successes and track record along the way. And I see some people who do it and just kill it at a young age. And I see other people who just insist on restarting their business year after year after year. They never get off the ground. So look, Steve, obviously you're a fantastic resource. I appreciate the time to talk to you. So for somebody who wanted to learn more from you, the San Diego REIA, I guess, is one place to meet up with you.
It's San Diego Creative Investor Association, SDCIA. I'm a board. That's a nonprofit. I'm on the board of that. And we have great speakers every month, but we run different groups. There's a group that teaches people how to use their VA benefits to invest. There's a group that teaches people how to go out of state. So we have different there's a group that teaches how to vet projects. I'm actually doing one on syndications. I'm teaching people a 6-part series the first 6 months of the year on how to create their own syndications or get involved in those. And I don't know if they're ready at the end of that, but at least they're thinking about it now. They can have a plan because a lot of people, they kind of hear the word, they don't really understand what it means, and they don't realize what a great mechanism it can be if you do it properly to fund projects by pooling a lot of people with a little bit of money to make enough money for everybody can do a project together.
Well, I think I'll do a project and learn. I think that's the part. Your first couple of projects, it's almost like your tuition, the investment. I know the first multifamily investment I did was with Grant Cardone, and I didn't do it just for the best return. I did because he was a great educator. And while I did the investment, I learned how his documents were done, how his organization ran, what to expect. And I haven't gone back to him. Not that he doesn't have good investments. They just don't maybe fit the profile I'm looking for. But I learned from him and continue to. And I think the education is important along the way.
Yeah, and I actually have some of my investors that have started just as passive investors, and later they said, we kind of want to see how you make the sausage, and what's behind the curtain here, because nobody talks about the kind of projects you do.
Exactly.
And I'll tell them, I said, look, I don't really have time to teach and mentor people up and that kind of stuff, but if you're bringing something to the party, you're always welcome at the party.
Right.
And they'll say, well, if you can teach me how to do like a syndication, I can go create a fund and invest in your projects. Would you teach me? Yes. Now you can be in one of our projects as at the table all the way,
nice.
because you're bringing something to the party.
Nice.
Other people bring land. They say, I got, there's land in the family. Can I put that into a partnership with you guys? Sure, we'll do that. And so there's ways to find out what can I offer to someone else that they would then invest in me, that because it has to be mutually beneficial. Most people like you and I, we got a pretty busy calendar. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of people that would like to like us to share that information with them. We just don't have the time for all that. So
that's why I do these podcasts. That's my way of giving back, to say, exactly, I'd like to help you. Here's how I can help. I'm going to point you to Steve on this and that. And different people like different flavors of real estate, and find the one that works for you. Steve,
obviously, do the workshops.
Exactly. So obviously, a treasure trove of information. Thank you for making time with us. Just a recap: Steve Matley, Coast to Coast Equities is the firm. Coast-to-coast.com is a website. You can learn about the projects. You can learn more about him and see other resources and other podcasts about his company. And then you can catch up with him at the San Diego Creative Investor Association. Now, are you sure that doesn't stand for San Diego Central Intelligence Agency? Because
yeah.
I heard SDCIA,
yeah.
and my hair is up a little bit. So. Yeah. Okay, it's legitimate. He says it's legitimate. If you want to check them out,
this is the oldest and largest in San Diego County. We are affiliated with the NREIA, the National REIA, so we have those benefits attached to it. We meet second Tuesday of the month, so we just had our meeting this week, and we meet down in Mission Bay there's marina with boats right outside the door.
Mission Bay is just so beautiful. Wow,
yeah,
we used to go there every year for vacation.
We have beer, wine, and food at every single meeting. So come on down. We do intense networking early, and then we have great speakers afterwards.
Mission Bay with beer, wine, or food. Any one of those three would be good enough for me for a guy like that. So again, Steve, thanks. SDCA is another place you can meet up with him. And for the rest of you, this is the LA County Real Estate Investors Association podcast. We do this every Tuesday, 3 p.m. We broadcast it. You can also catch it on replay on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. Second Thursday of the month, we have a live event in Los Angeles, about 250 people. It's free. Great speaker. Jeremy Ruben in March was on flipping properties. William Brojnik in April will be on using other people's money for investment. Always great material. There's a vendors expo as well with 50 people like me to help you along your path. Also Ventura, they have the VCRealestateInvestors.com is on the second Wednesday of the month in Ventura. I'm Bill Gross. You can get my information at linktr.ee/Bill Gross has all my information, podcasts, and class and stuff that I do. Really appreciate you again, Steve. Thank you for your time as always. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Bill. It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you soon.